welcome to the Replimat, a weekly chatcast where two nerds go through Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode by episode in chronological order, or in broadcast order, depending on your point of view. One of them is a seasoned fan, and that is...
Me, Andy.
The other is a noob, and that's me, Tim. And I've never seen any of this before. Well, I've seen up to now. We are on Series 2, Episode 11 this week, which is the episode Rivals. It's directed by David Livingston, I presume. A story by Jim Trombetta and Michael Piller. Teleplay by Joe Minosky. And according to Netflix, over a drink at Quark's, a middle-aged alien widow tells an alien man how she plans to invest her life savings in a large mining concession. That sounds thrilling.
I have to say, because now I've got Netflix for this very thing, I read that and I was like, that literally tells you one scene that's not overly important. I mean, it's a kind of a catalyst, I suppose, but it tells you nothing about the episode at all. The next week's one at least tells you something about it, but yeah, wow. It's like these people just like watch a scene and go, oh, that'll do. You know, it's like baffling.
Yes.
Anyway.
That's where we are for this week.
Yes.
So, Andy, how's your week been?
I'm going to do a Tim. It's been pretty boring. It's just work, really. To be fair...
you're no fun anymore.
To be fair, it's not untrue. I haven't done a whole lot this week. It's been work. It's busiest week. We're not quite in peak, but we're peak-ish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sort of healthy. Or unhealthy. Unhealthy, peakish? Sort of unhealthy, isn't it? Anyway.
Yes. Peaky is unhealthy.
So yeah, we're getting to the unhealthier part of work. Beyond that, obviously I've been doing Subblock H, naturally. I'm on 190 now, I think, out of 692. So I'm getting there slowly.
Yep.
What else have I watched this week? Not a lot. Green Grass, obviously, which continues to really, really amuse me. Good. It's definitely, like I said last week, easily better than Only Fools, I think. It works better for me anyway. And I've been watching The Strain, which originally it was who make it? FX, I believe, America.
Okay. I've not heard of The Strain.
It's not a streaming thing. It's an American networky thing, I reckon. Anyway, it's basically, it was 4 seasons. It ended a few years back. It's got Corey Stoll in it. Okay. You'll know him as Darren What's-His-Face in Ant-Man, Green Yellow Jacket, and House of Cards and various other things. We were quite clearly wearing a wig because, as we all know, he doesn't have a great deal of hair on his head. And I'm watching him like, it's not a bad wig, but I know it is clearly a wig. Unless I may be wrong and he went bald after this series.
Right.
I don't think so, though, because I'm pretty sure this was possibly after House of Cards for him. I can't remember. I don't know. But either way, it's enjoyable. It's basically, essentially, an airplane lands in New York, I want to say. I think it's New York. Okay. And the CDC have to get involved because some kind of viral infection has spread on the plane and everybody appears to be dead, but then suddenly 3 people appear not to be dead, only somehow they are too, and they get out and a viral infection spreads throughout the city very, very rapidly, which seems to have some kind of connection to vampirism. It's based on a series of novels by Guillermo del Toro and some other dude. So you can see the kind of...
It's ringing some bells now.
Right.
Yeah.
I've
not seen it, but I remember hearing about it at the time.
I'm like 6-7 episodes in, I think, with season 1. and it's really good. Somebody
Cool.
recommended it. I thought, okay, I'll give that a whirl. Always looking for new for me at least.
Hmm.
TV shows. I like the sort of horror, supernatural kind of vibe. So something new, and always looking for a new take on vampirism because obviously it's a story that's been done once or twice over the decades.
Yes.
Um, so it's always nice if somebody can come along with a different take on it, or at least a different mix of the elements. And so far, this appears to be a decent, fresh-ish mix.
Cool.
Beyond that, to be fair, I've not really done much.
It's funny you should mention vampirism because what's becoming
you got no
kind of a weekly occurrence, although it's not intentionally so. But I actually picked up another new book this week, and it's Bram Stoker, Dracula's Guest, and Other Weird stories.
Dracula's Guest,
which includes
short that inspired book. I remember, or was it a prologue taken out of the book before?
No, Stoker's. It was published after, it was kind of collected or collated after Stoker's death, published by his widow, who claimed that Dracula's Guest was like an unused chapter from the book, or I think, or potentially from an early draft of the book. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in the book at all. It doesn't. So if it was excised, it would have been from a very early version because it's very different from the from. I've read the story in isolation a few times,
right?
But my wife's been listening to some sort of narrated horror tales on through the Alexa in the kitchen last couple of weeks, and some of the more enjoyable ones have turned out to be Bram Stoker ones. So we thought, well, we'll pick up a copy of this and actually read them rather than have them read to us. Yes. And this collection's also got The Lair of the White Worm in it, which is one of these novels, and of course is probably sort of slight kind of coming of age type film for people of our era with was it Amanda Donohoe and Hugh Grant?
Generation.
You
right? I don't think I've ever seen it, but I know I am very familiar with it.
Haven't you?
Yeah. So
it's awful. I think it's pretty awful, and it's supposed to be a pretty rubbish book as well. But then apparently, apart from Dracula, Stoker was considered something of a hack anyway. I think so. I think good old Dracula's kind of been the thing that's been supporting him as a literary name.
That's true of a lot of authors from that time. They had one, not necessarily hit, certainly not when they were alive and necessarily a hit, but certainly has become a renowned classic decades and decades, sometimes centuries later. But yeah, all the other stuff is just like, I mean, Mary Shelley, what else can you tell me that she's written beyond Frankenstein? She has written other stuff, but
I read the last day?
I've heard of it. I saw it on Amazon. I think it's on my list of things to get at some point because I'm like, never read any of that stuff, so curious.
It was all right, but it wasn't anything worth writing home about. It's probably about 10 years since I read it now, so I don't really remember that well. But
suppose they're the equivalent of the one-hit wonder, aren't they? Really?
But,
fair enough. But what else have you been up to?
I've been back to work, so of course my general my general level of involvement with things outside of work has decreased massively. I've continued to watch Clone Wars. Yes, I'm really enjoying the Clone Wars actually.
Excellent.
And I think possibly I'm actually enjoying it more because it's kind of slotting into what I already know.
Right, so it's the context around
it. Yeah, so I quite like the fact that when Count Dooku was abducted by pirates, by Hondo and his pirates, I knew that there was no way that Hondo was going to get sliced up because he appears later in Rebels and stuff like that. So,
yes.
And just so I'm still really enjoying that. I'm still trying to watch those an episode or two a day when I can.
Thinking on it, I'm curious to see if and when, because it seems almost inevitable that Hondo will end up in live action Star Wars at some point.
Probably they've done a weekway in Mandalorian, haven't they? Or Book of Boba Fett.
Oh,
Or
of
both.
course, yeah, because he's the
The
same
bartender.
species from Return of the Jedi. Yeah, I keep forgetting he's one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that seems inevitable. Assuming he's still alive post Return of the Jedi. We know he's alive up to Rebels and stuff, like you say. So,
Yeah.
that would be fun. That would be interesting.
So yeah. Apart from that, I've been doing a lot of I've not been doing any writing this week, but I've been doing quite a bit of editing. So actually, as opposed to my usual self on the Saturday thinking, this is my moment of kind of enjoyment in the week.
Yeah.
Actually, overall, I've had a pretty good week, and I'm trying to redress the kind of work-life balance thing a bit more. So, so generally, I'm feeling quite perky on the Saturday
Cool.
this week for a change.
Perky and peaky.
Yeah, let's hope that the drink at Quark's and the middle-aged couple and their large mining concession don't drag me down too much.
I'm not going to say much about this episode, but I picked this one as our first reaction because for me, it's not one of those episodes that I would necessarily return to. So I'm thinking if we actually watch it and react to it, I might get a bit more enjoyment out of it by taking the piss out of it while we watch it.
Okay.
And the viewers can join us too. Which brings us to our next point of business. YouTube, Spotify people, we're going to say goodbye to you shortly, temporarily at least, because over on Patreon, so link on the description below, do join us. We are going to actually record our reaction to watching Rivals. And if you come on Patreon, and you are now on Patreon, you can join us and watch it along. And welcome back, YouTubers and Spotifyers. We're now back for the actual review. Tim and I have just watched the episode along with our patrons for some fun, interesting reactions. Mostly Tim looking really serious and like, what's going on? So, Tim, what's going on?
What's going on? I just wasted the last 45 minutes of my life. That's what's going on. That was bollocks.
Mm-hmm.
That was just unmitigated rubbish. I can't. There was. I'm trying to think of like any just sort of like redeeming factors, sort of nuggets of like character interplay or anything like that between the regulars or something, but there wasn't really anything at all. A couple of nice moments where Odo arrested the Susan Sarandon's brother.
Mm-hmm.
But that's that's it. But that's paltry for an episode of anything really. But season 2 of Deep Space Nine was brilliant up until about 3 weeks ago, and it's like somebody's just poured the whole lot down.
Yeah, second sight happened, and what was last week again?
Oh God, what was last week?
It was. What was it? There was second sight, and then there was
Sanctuary.
I didn't mind it.
Yeah,
it wasn't it wasn't second sight, but it wasn't.
I mean, it wasn't as much of a turd as this and Second Sight, but it was not good.
Well, you'd be glad to know next week normal service resumes in the good stakes anyway.
Okay.
Next week's a good one. Most people think it's a good one. I reckon you agree. But yeah, this week.
Yeah, I just pointless, just absolutely pointless filler. No sense of like drama or engagement or lightheartedness or anything. It was at no point did I feel that I wanted to carry on watching this. I mean, I'm kind of relieved that really kind of forced awkwardness between Bashir and O'Brien kind of resolved itself in the end because they were talking about like the effects of the luck and stuff.
Mm.
But just no, I have to say I hate with these kind of things. I hate seeing people kind of being not necessarily off duty, but the way that things get the way that characters or other characterizations or performances get forced when people are playing sort of outside of their usual environment, or playing
I
those
think,
characters outside of their usual environment.
yeah, I think there's a lot of
The most obvious one is if you have any kind of series at all where any of the characters are putting on a show or doing a play, right? Because suddenly all of the actors in it are they're doing the worst kind of sort of forced andram acting, and it's just horrible. And it kind of had this a little bit where you the beginning where you got Miles walking along this has got me calling him Miles. I don't even like calling him Miles. He's O'Brien. I don't particularly like the character. I'm talking about him as if he's my bloody best friend. You got Miles walking along, swishing his racket around, thinking, "Oh no, just."
Well, the racquetball thing with O'Brien, at least that is a follow on from TNG, where he used to do like kayaking and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, they're still trying again. I think they're trying to find what do these characters do when they're not working, because they can't be working all the time. Because if the whole point of this show was getting into them as regulars, day, then obviously you got to show them off duty too. But yeah, this one is not. They haven't found their niche yet for O'Brien and Bashir.
Well, when Bashir's off duty so far, he's generally either been kind of leering at someone in the Replimat, or chatting up. What's the Kardashian's name?
Oh, Garrick.
That's it, Garrick. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah. So we've kind of seen him kind of off duty. We have seen O'Brien off duty a bit when he's kind of in his domestic setting with Keiko. We had a bit of that here as well, and again, yeah, there's no chemistry between those two at all, which is such a shame, because I don't dislike her performance as such, but it's almost like a split screen thing. So she's like acting in half the screen, and he's acting in the other half of the screen. And whatever she's doing on her half isn't reflected at all on his. I don't think necessarily the fault lies with the actor playing Keiko wholeheartedly, because I think Colm Meaney's got a specific way of playing O'Brien and a specific view about how O'Brien reacts to certain scenes. He doesn't engage with her as a performer.
Well, I think it might be because these characters have existed as a couple for 3 years now. I think 3-ish years anyway. But they're never really on screen enough as a couple, or just in scenes together, really, just the odd one here and there. I mean, literally, you had one episode where she's introduced, and most of the time she's opposite Data, so, and they've had a few domestic scenes on DS9 and Next Gen, and again, it's all very, I don't know, I get a sense that they didn't do what I think would have been a smart thing to do, is when they were casting Keiko, knowing that it's going to be O'Brien's wife, because that was obviously the plan, because literally her first episode she appears, they're about to get married. So there's no lead-in, no build-up. Common sense to me would have dictated that when they were trying to cast a character, they would have done a bit of, let's have these various actors play opposite column to see who spark.
Yes.
Obviously, that's kind of key to sell a relationship on screen. I mean, even O'Brien and Bashir, Colum and Siddig, they have a spark between them. The script is still trying to work out what to do with it, clearly, but there's clearly something that bounces quite well with them, because even in the Storyteller last season, not the best episode, but you could see there's definitely a bit of chemistry between the actors.
Yeah.
And the writers are still trying to work out how do we capitalize on that properly. But there's nothing there with Roslyn Chow and Colin Meaney, which is a shame, because that's, at this point, certainly, other than the Ciscos, they are the main relationship of this series. We've got lots of friendships, but, look at the Ciscos. Not Jake wasn't in this one, obviously, but whenever you see the Avery Brooks and Cyril Lofton on screen together as Jake and Ben, the chemistry, the pathos between them is amazing and absolutely 100% believable. With this, you really have to stretch yourself. Again, it's nothing against necessarily the character of Keiko, because that again comes down to the writing that just makes her kind of boring, really. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the actress's performance, because when she's not opposite O'Brien, she tends to work a lot better, depending on, I suppose, who she's playing with. But like you say, yeah, having her and Colin Meaney together in scenes, you're just like, okay, I'm just not invested because I'm not feeling this is real.
Yeah, Colin Meaney's got he's got a very belligerent way about him as O'Brien, and
oftentimes, yeah.
And I don't think he's aware of how he doesn't vary that in the work setting and the domestic setting. So he's belligerent at home, he's belligerent at work, and that doesn't. So it doesn't work in a domestic setting because there's no way in for Keiko. There's no link. There's no connection there. So you look at it and you think, how the hell did these two ever get married? Because she's obviously quite an understanding person. She thinks but she's getting those kind of moments where she, oh dear, here he goes again.
Yeah.
And kind of just lets him get on with it in a kind of sort of classic British sitcom type style.
The long-suffering wife.
But there's no change. I don't see a change in him in the domestic setting, really, to the work setting. And
I wonder.
And I think that's a problem. I don't know whether that's in the writing or whether that's in the performance, but I'm inclined to think that it's a limitation of the character that they haven't worked out how to get around. And it's possible that he feels that he would be going out of character to relax and soften up.
I wonder if maybe it is in the writing, because I know obviously what comes up later down the line. Or is it a combination of, at the moment, the writing's still trying to work out? Because, like I said at the beginning, when we first started doing this, it's very clear, and I'm pretty sure the writers and producers have said this, I've read it somewhere certainly, that they never really knew what to do with these characters as a married couple. So there's always finding ways to just get rid of her because it just didn't work. They were obviously, they was lumbered with it by getting O'Brien, they got Keiko. I mean, I suppose they probably could have just gotten divorced and moved away and done with it, but they were trying to find whatever.
I wonder if the characters were ever encouraged to spend time together off set. The characters, the actors, because I wonder if that because sometimes you then develop a connection or a relationship with other actors that comes out of a connection you have in real life.
Well,
that just just signals in the eyes and the setting of the face,
the body language,
the body language, just around them, just is enough to give it. It's why you, although it's clearly a very combative relationship, that there is a believability about, say, Basil and Sybil Fawlty in Fawlty Towers, because of the way they are together, and you can kind of pick up on what was previously a closer relationship. I
I
think.
wonder. I get a sense that they almost didn't hang out together because obviously Rosin Chow only came in every now and then for an episode.
Yeah.
Uh, I think, again, I don't know absolutely for sure, but I suspect that Colin, we know he's a busy chap outside of DS9 because he was still doing films and stuff. So I imagine he didn't have much time to just hang with people anyway. But I do wonder, because he does, or certainly then, he tended to play quite gruff characters in his films anyway. So I wonder if he just got stuck into a certain way of acting at that point, and
Yeah, I
he
suspect you're
couldn't
probably right.
transition as an actor from the roles he's playing in films and then come back to play O'Brien. So I don't know.
Well,
Maybe it's a
a lot of
combination of
actors do
things.
that, and they get a lot of work that way by basically kind of they deliver a reliable
Yeah.
performance each time.
Mm.
I think it might be someone like John LeMessurier, say years ago, always do the same performance, and then everyone knows what they're getting from you. Which actually undersells, for example, what he did in
Yeah,
a number of things he did. But I think there probably is a certain amount of that as well.
possibly.
This is the kind of roles I do, the kind of niche
Mm.
I slot into. So
It's interesting because, like I said, I know what's coming up with O'Brien and the characters he interacts with, and I definitely would say there's a definite change later. So
okay,
maybe it is a bit of both. Maybe it's just a mixture of things at the moment. Just, I don't know. Just to please you, we've got another O'Brien Bashir episode coming up in 2 weeks.
all good.
Very different episode, which I think is probably one of the ones that really starts to solidify what these characters are going to become.
Brilliant.
But yeah, this one, which we seem to become an O'Brien talking episode again, like we do. It's interesting to me that O'Brien is often regarded by Star Trek fans these days, in particular, as being such an amazing character. He's the everyman. He's this and that, and I'm just like, I'd never seen it. I mean,
No, I
there's
don't. I
definitely
don't
elements
get that
later on,
impression at
but
all.
yeah, I'm just
There's very little about the character that attracts him to me. I have to say most of the series that I've enjoyed so far has had very little involvement from him.
yeah. Basically, he's ever certainly in TNG. He was just always a suck up all the time. Literally, to anybody who's superior, he sucks up to them constantly. Which we've seen him do that this series as well. Or he's just like you say, he's just grumpy and miserable. Which I guess I can see why some people can relate because in general life people can't help but be that way just about life. So I can see
It's
how
me
that
most
might.
weeks.
So I can see how people could relate to that, I suppose. But you want to escape that sort of shit when you're watching TV, don't you? Sometimes. But I don't know. Elsewhere in this episode, I like Rom's small role in it. I thought that was quite funny. Max Grodinchik had some good little moments. Like when he quit and stuff and took the woman with him. Come on, nice little
Yeah,
moments.
that's true. I mean, it's good to see that he gets kind of abused and walked all over by whoever's employing him.
Wherever he's going, yes, but at least it's by family at Quark's. At least he knows where he stands. Again, yeah, there's a few good moments. Quark, I'm assuming was great in pretty much every scene he did. He really made his scenes come alive, even when he was given some really not so. I mean, actually, he was in his element because he was just basically being the entrepreneur. He's being the businessman and absolutely loving it. Where
Yeah,
the other guy was just shit at that, frankly.
I mean, basically, what you're saying is, is true. Quark and Rom in particular were good. I just think the episode was bollocks. It was a complete nothing.
It isn't nothing, and it's never. There's no satisfying explanation of what this new game does anyway. They waffle about neutrinos and stuff towards the end to explain why things are going like they're going. But there's nothing solid that you can latch your head onto like, hey, that makes sense. There's nothing.
Presumably,
You
the
never learn what
the
this game
small
even
original
does.
game that he had is still kicking around somewhere
Presumably, yeah, because they didn't destroy that.
because they didn't shoot that.
No, yeah, and it's just never explained what the game actually. I mean, even like Darbo, when the one that goes on in Quarks all the time, which is some Ferengi game, you see it every now and then, so you get a sort of sense of it. I mean, I could never tell you what the rules are, but you get the sense of it's a card game, and they spin this sort of a casino / card game, so you can kind of sort of get your head into it, even if you don't know the rules. But this thing is just the sphere that lights up, and apparently you win or lose. But how or why? What are the games? What are you even doing to play? And basing a whole episode on such a thing and not even remotely explaining it doesn't help.
No, it shows that the basic premise that they had at the centre of it all was simply about the luck.
Yeah.
No kind of grasp of what like you said, what those machines or those game machines actually did, and they just kind of glossed over it with the luck, and by throwing in a few more pointless sci-fi up names of common
the
common
Valerian
things.
mammoth or whatever it was.
It's just I know, and it's not. I can understand the desire to try and make all your dialogue like sci-fi, but if what the characters are saying doesn't sound like something that anyone would normally say, even now or hundreds of years in the future, it sounds false. And as soon as somebody starts coming up with having to qualify the animal that they're talking about, or the game that they're playing, or the woman that they've been seeing with some with a species, a planet, a number, or something like that, it just kind of pulls you out, because you think it's unimportant, unless it has a bearing on the story or the plot, which invariably it doesn't.
No, it's just trimmings, isn't it?
It is. It's just there to make it sci-fi, and that's the best thing about DS9 so far has been the drama, has been the character relationships, the interactions, and generally the drama of the situations. So it is, at the end of the day, a drama within a sci-fi setting.
Yeah.
You don't have to force that setting, or the constant clarification of everything as this is a sci-fi piece of bread. Just it's not needed in that setting. It shouldn't be needed in that setting, and it just drags you out of it. And it suggests that they're not, at those points, they don't have enough character and almost like character and plot to get through the episode. So they're having to they're kind of having to gloss over things slightly by chucking in some sci-fi.
Yeah.
And it just that's the point where I start to kind of it pulls me out of the moment, out of the drama. I don't like that.
I get it. I totally agree.
I sound so miserable, don't I?
It's fine. This is not, as I say, this would never be an episode that I would just watch on a rewatch on its own. It's not.
Yes, it's not one I plan to rewatch. It's not one I plan to rewatch.
No, I think it would be. This is not going to be an episode that you're going to come back to for sure.
So this is episode 11, right? So we're
almost halfway season.
Yeah, so we had 8 episodes that were, generally speaking, pretty much consistently great, if not brilliant.
I'd agree.
And then it's like the last 3 steps we've taken, we've trodden in a turd each time. It's just not.
Well, it can't be great every week, can it? We had a few of those in season 1 as well, but I don't think anything that was quite as bad as this, to be fair.
No.
I don't think, anyway. I mean, even the Q episode, which wasn't great by any means, had more, a similar element to where the threat was obviously this thing they just brought on board the station. It's like, well, obviously, come on, Starfleet, you've been doing this your whole life. You should have sussed, well, new things on the station. This is happening. I wonder what's the connection. Although I have to assume, given them the benefit of the doubt, that there are new things being brought on the station all the time. So maybe there's other stuff that been brought on the station as well as this game. But I think that's being generous.
Yeah. No, I can accept that there's stuff going on all the time that they don't necessarily know about. That's understandable. I just they need to be able to make what is going on a little bit more interesting.
Well, fortunately,
have a meaningful impact on the characters.
Well, what they need to do, and I know for a fact will end up doing, is get away from this nonsense of strange artifact of a week. Basically doing the whole Star Trek Next Gen type of story, TOS sort of story, which this again could easily have been any Star Trek. It just wasn't specific enough.
Completely.
They need to work to the strengths of this series, which is about the characters. It's about Bajor. It's about the wormhole. It's about the Cardassian threat that's constantly lingering, obviously, and obviously this thing that's coming up, which they keep hinting towards. Once they get to that, and they're not faffing around this minutia, this silly Star Trek-y, let's have a strange alien artifact that does something weird but not explain it. Once they get past all that, then we're on solid ground. But yeah, we've had a 3-week blip, I think. Certainly for you. And partly for me too.
I was really, I got to the point where I was thinking, this is consistently great stuff. This is why everyone has been saying to me for years, oh yeah, Star Trek Deep Space Nine was the best of the best series, and the last 3 episodes are basically just kind of
pistol over
met all my worst fears and expectations.
The other thing they say, and I know you've heard this, is the idea that you can skip the first 2 seasons because they're not that good. And I like that up until this point, or let's say up until 3 weeks ago, you were definitely of the opposite mind of, actually, the first 2 seasons are really good. And I would agree with that. But
I can't think of it. I can't think of, apart from the kind of half dozen or so.
Yeah. So if you think not this one, if you think majority of season 1 and 2 thus far has been pretty brilliant, I'm looking forward to when you get to the actual good stuff. We've had some really good stuff, like obviously Duet, Progress, Hands of the Prophets, and the opening trilogy, for instance. Brilliant. It shows what DS9 can and will be. So I'm looking forward to that. So Tim, I have to ask, is there anything else you've got to say about this episode? Because I'm thinking probably not.
I just wonder if for the better episodes, whether the Netflix description gets any better.
Well, as I say, the next week's one at least has some bearing on what the story's about. So that's nice. But yes, not the best. My bottom line on this one would be, although it may not seem essential now, the Bashir and O'Brien building block stuff, this episode is easily skippable. There's nothing in this that you'll remember. For instance, they'll mention Rivals in the future. You'll be like, what episode was that? And then you get reminded and you're like, oh, yeah, I could have done it without being told of that. But yeah, so what's your bottom line? Like, I don't know.
My bottom line is that this is an episode I never need to watch again.
Yay. Okay, so next week, the episode is The Alternate.
The Alternate?
Which I think grammatically makes sense this time, not the usual American way of misusing that word.
Right.
Because we've had that discussion a few times.
As in the alternate?
Yes, which is also a very different thing to alternate.
Okay. The alternate. Wonder what the hell that could be about. Well, it's not. Presumably, it's not someone given a choice about something, because that would be the alternative, I would imagine. So it could be.
Next one along.
It could be another side to someone, perhaps.
Mm. Or is it some varsity thing like cheerleaders have alternates, don't they? It probably isn't that, though.
Oh, yes.
That's very American.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'll tell you this then, just to get you a little bit excited for next week and to cheer you up after this abysmal episode. It's an Odo episode, which we haven't really had one. The closest we've had to an actual Odo, well, we've had a couple. We had the Vortex one, which gave a few hints. We found out what a species is called and that. And we've had the Forsaken with the Waxana Troy episode, which was obviously an older episode, as it turned out.
Yeah, we also had the what was it? The flashback episode with
oh yeah, Necessary Evil a couple of weeks back. Yes.
Yeah, that was a good Odo episode.
That was.
So,
but this is really an Odo episode.
Cool.
I'll
look forward to that then.
This is the sort of episode you're going to really like. Ooh, this is fascinating stuff, I think. Of course, you could end up watching like, what a load of shit that was. For goodness sake. Can we please get to some good stuff again?
So, we'll see. We'll see.
All right, I think that's pretty much us done then. So,
well, yeah, the day can't get any worse than that, surely.
Well, you've got baked potatoes coming up, so who knows, right?
I do have baked potatoes coming up.
He kind of looks like a baked potato, doesn't he?
Can't mess up a baked potato, really.
You say that. I'm sure there's people who can. I'm pretty sure there's people who can. Okay, so Patreons, thank you for joining us and watching our reaction. YouTubers and Spotifyers, if you want to see us actually react to this episode, pop over to Patreon. The link will be in the description. For only £1.50 a month, whatever that translates into dollars, not that much more, you'll get exclusive uncut episodes and one reaction a month. For all the rest of you, as usual, like, subscribe, all that malarkey. Please go on to Patreon for us, because that money will help us to actually feed into the podcast, and that'll be good.
It will.
In the meantime, you'll be able to find us on the usual media places: Threads, X, Instagram. That's it currently at the moment, I believe.
Probably.
Cool. All right then. Until next week, I have been Andy.
And I've been Tim.
And I have been saying bye-bye, Duggan.
He has indeed.
Who the fuck is Duggan?
Bye-bye.